We want you to know that we're going to be prepping an Ask Me Anything episode. If there are topics you're interested in, if there's questions that you have, please let us know, and we'll use those to create this episode so that it gives you the content that you're looking for, that explains maybe some of the things that you've been wondering about. And so let us know. This is Metabolic Mastery, a KORR Medical Technologies podcast dedicated to advancing knowledge and practice in metabolic testing. Welcome to Metabolic Mastery, brought to you by KORR Medical Technologies. I'm Dr. Marc Humbert, and this is my co-host, Dr. Cameron Garber. And today we're going to be talking about the business side of things. And so Cameron and I love talking about the data, all the things that we can do, how we can really use what we get from the cardio coach to help people's fitness improve and really help them improve the quality of their life. But the bottom line is, if you want to be able to help people in the ways that you want, you need to be able to run a successful business, right?
Yeah.
If that bottom line isn't coming in, then you can't actually help the people that you want to help. And I think that is something that's kind of difficult in the healthcare world and the fitness world, is like feeling like we're doing a disservice to people if we charge them, right? And that mindset can actually keep us from helping people, because the more stable your business is, the more people you can help, the more lives you can change. And so this really, we had an episode a little bit ago with Greg Marshall, selling to help, and that's really the mindset. And so what does that look like in practice? How do we structure things to help make metabolic testing a value add?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be able to obviously stay in business long enough to help enough people to make a difference. And I think that's why most of us got in the health change business, where we're trying to improve somebody's health and wellness, is we want to help people. But if we don't have a successful business, we can't help people for very long. And so that it's always this balance between, how do I charge enough to make money, but also deliver enough value? And I think that's the key. Deliver enough value to people that we feel comfortable charging that, and that we, all parties involved feel like that's worth it.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're not charging enough where you're uncomfortable with that, then you're not charging enough. So that really is one of the metrics you should use, is your own discomfort level. If you feel like, man, I charge quite a bit for what I do, that's actually probably a good thing, because that's going to force people to value it and force you to sell it in a way that shows the value of it. If it's a commodity, if it's something that's very cheap and anybody could do it, then you're going to treat it like that, and your patients will treat it like that as well. And so it has to have enough meat to it that there's value there.
Well, and I think just this idea of helping position it as investing in their health.
Yeah.
Because it's really a mindset shift. If we're investing in our health, then we see that not as an expense, but as a deposit towards future independence.
Right.
And if we can position it that way and get people to buy in and have some skin in the game, typically they're more motivated to actually follow through on the program versus this wishy-washy commitment that we often see when it is more of this, commodity. I could go anywhere to get this done.
Right. Well, and the idea is that this is a plan of care. That testing isn't just a one-time sale, but that we're helping people buy into a greater plan, a longer-term effort towards their health and wellness. So the idea is, the longer we can help somebody buy in and sign up for multiple tests over time, as well as whatever other programming we're doing to help them, we're going to make a bigger difference in their health and wellness versus just one-off testing. And quite frankly, from a business model standpoint, if you're just doing one-off testing, it's a lot harder to make a business out of that, because your acquisition costs, so the cost it takes you to get new people in the door, is going to be much higher if you're always having to get fresh blood, if you will. Whereas if you're retesting people, then you've already kind of sunk that acquisition cost in getting them in the first time. And then by selling them well on the plan, whatever that plan is, then we can make additional revenue, deliver additional value, and charge more for that. And so I always say, I don't want to be busier. I don't want to necessarily have to see more patients and get more butts in the door, if you will. Instead, I want to make more money per patient by delivering more value so that then I can charge more. And then I'm making more money per person, per individual, and per interaction, by delivering more value. And so then I can see fewer people and have a greater work-life balance. I'm happier, the patient's happier because they got so much more value. And the money just becomes something that's transactional, where they are investing in their future, and that's just the price of admission, if you will. We complain about high concert ticket prices and stuff, but we still go to the concert because the value is there for us. We want to see that enough that we still pay those prices.
Yeah, well, and I just I love how many times you said value in that last little bit. But that's the important thing is it doesn't feel like an overcharge if value has been provided to the client. Like, I can think about things that I've spent a lot of money on, but I'm not just like, oh my gosh, I sunk so much money in that. I'm like, oh man, I'm so grateful that I was connected with this person or this opportunity because it's made such a change for me.
Right. The same person that tells you they can't afford something is going home and buying something on Amazon tonight. Right? And so the reason why they can afford something, a TV on Amazon, is because they value that. They know I'm going to be able to watch this TV for years to come or whatever. They see the value in it. If they're telling you they can't afford it, sometimes it truly is
Absolutely
a money issue. More often than not, it's a value issue. They don't see the value in it to the level that they're willing to pay what you're asking to pay. And so that, honestly, I feel like is more on me than on them, that I didn't present the value of that thing to them well enough that they got it. And so that's on me. And when they understand the value of it, then they buy into the whole plan too. And they're more compliant. So they actually do what we ask them to do, and they buy in better. And so I think that's so important when we think about this kind of setting the table, because there's a lot of different ways that we can generate revenue streams using metabolic testing. So we have both RMR testing, so the resting metabolic rate. We've got VO2 max testing, or fat max testing, or so many other different ways that we can test, but a long form test where we can look at a bunch of different things. So looking at substrate utilization, there's lots of different ways that we could create different types of tests or different types of revenue streams depending on what we want to do. And so the key is usually, let's create a baseline assessment. That's one product that you can do, is here's our baseline assessment that we can charge for, and all those things. There's retesting packages, there's nutrition integration, there's all kinds of different avenues in terms of corporate wellness, and selling packages to different companies and C-suite level people, or all kinds of ideas of how you could make this generate money. I think one of the things you have to decide early on in your business, you brought up the idea of value add. Is this going to be something that I need to have be a direct ROI engine, where I can calculate directly that adding VO2 testing is making me additional money? You have to decide, is this going to be an ROI engine in my business, or is this going to be something that is a value add, where I offer a whole suite of services and the VO2 testing is part of a greater package that I'm selling? So you can make money either way. You just have to decide that from a business standpoint. What's the way that I'm going to create that? And in our business, Body Smart, we kind of went through over time doing things each of those ways, where it was first kind of part of this continuum of care, where we were more traditional physical therapy, traditional healthcare, in network with insurances and everything, and then transition to being out of network, and then more payment plans and packages, and then to where it was just a value add only.
Doing it this way, it was just a natural evolution.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
What we found was that as we worked with people, we're like, you know what? This model isn't really working for what they need. Right? Oh, you know what? I found that this actually helps people to progress a lot faster. And so it was just this iterative process where we would try things and then like how did it work with the clients, right? And how did that work financially as well?
Yeah.
And as I've mentioned on here many times before, you can't separate physiology from psychology. And the reason I say that is that so often, going back to the kind of the traditional physical therapy model, it's like, you see people 2 to 3 times a week for 4 to 6 weeks, and then you're done. And the difficulty is, one, often like you don't need to see people that often, that many times a week, and that can be really disruptive to their schedule.
Yeah.
And so like kind of how do I add the most value with the fewest visits so that it makes sense for them and for us, so that it's not just like, you're packed constantly, but also it's this idea of helping people through the process of behavior change. And that is often a longer term progress. And so as the model of delivery changed, so did our timelines. And so where it was initially, we're seeing you for a few weeks or for a few months, it changed to we're seeing you for 6 months or for a year. And that was really to help them make this longer term investment in their health and have enough time with them to help them through the messy process of behavior change.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have in our mind, like, oh man, I have this goal, I'm committed to it, and it's going to go like this. And we have this specific timeline in mind. And then real life happens. And, motivation ebbs and flows. And so being able to position yourself as a hub for helping them through the process of behavior change, helping them reach that goal, and helping them understand what it's going to take to reach that goal. And so that's one of the ways, again, this is not the only way to deliver this,
Right.
but this is one way that we found was really effective to deliver the service, use it as a value add, and help people make that progress that they were looking for, and spend enough time with them that when that messiness showed up, when they got to a plateau or were trying to get over a hump, we could help them through that.
Yeah. Let's walk through kind of the history, the evolution then of what we did at Body Smart. So at first, when we were in network, our whole position with this was, physical therapy, like Marc said, is the 2 to 3 times a week for 6 to 8 weeks, or four to 8 weeks is kind of the typical prescription that we're often set up with. And so 6 to 8 weeks, that's about what insurance will pay for. And so you get that equates to like what, 8 to 20 visits, depending on how long somebody's coming and things like that. So you have these like 20 visits that a lot of insurances will cover, and you're spreading that out over time. And the problem is physical therapy typically just addresses pain. And honestly, most of healthcare is centered around just about solving pain and not the reason why you're in pain. So I always say a typical clinician is going to find out what's hurting and give you something for the pain. A really good clinician finds out, well, why is that thing hurting? And a really good clinician finds out what's the lifestyle factor that's leading to the cause that's then leading to the pain. So again, kind of one of those 3 layers deep thing of what's really going on in their life and lifestyle that's making them have that weakness or whatever it is that's then causing the pain. So here's an example. Somebody comes in with knee pain and they're like, yeah, my knee hurts. And a lot of physical therapists or a lot of clinicians, family practice or otherwise, treat that pain. They're like, oh, here's some pills, here's some exercises for knee pain, here's some things like that. Doesn't really help in the long run because it's just band-aiding the bullet hole, if you will. And so really good clinicians try to dive in and find out what's going on. They will either refer out to a physical therapist or something like that, or if the physical therapist will dive in and see like, oh, it looks like that knee pain is coming because of hip weakness and things like that. So here's some hip exercises. But I think a really good clinician goes, why aren't your hips strong? What's going on that's causing the weakness in your hips? Well, it's a lack of a regular routine and program and things like that. And so let's treat that. unfortunately, traditional insurance doesn't pay for us to treat that, the lifestyle. So we get them to the I'm out of pain issue and their insurance runs out and we have to say goodbye. So what this allowed me to do by adding VO2 testing into the plan of care was tell people from visit one, I would set them up with this idea of like, so your real problem isn't just knee pain. And it's not even the hip weakness that we identified. It's actually that your lifestyle isn't providing the right types of strengthening exercises in your regular routine to keep your hips strong and your knees from having pain. So let's address the lifestyle issues. And so at the end of our getting you out of pain phase of this plan of care, we're going to add on this metabolic testing and some functional testing where we're going to look at where your lifestyle can be improved and your overall fitness can be improved to help you lead that healthy, active lifestyle that you always wanted to and why you're really here, right? And so that was originally kind of this extension of the plan of care that they'd come in for a normal course of physical therapy. And then we extended that plan of care out from there. So kind of like Mark was saying, we realized that the timelines for behavior change, for really making these adjustments, needed to be quite a bit longer.
Well, I'm you're talking about those lifestyle aspects, and I'm thinking of the story of a specific patient that I'll have you tell. But you know, this is not to say that we don't help with the pain. We don't help with those things too, but it's about the perspective that we take. And so it's kind of going up and taking this 30,000 foot view and saying like, hey, what's the whole map of the problem, right? What's going on? And then at any given stage, what's the focus? What are we helping through? And so like, still great to help people, get the pain down or have some of those initial changes, but in service to this broader goal of how do I make things work, not just from an exercise or movement or pain standpoint, but that I don't have this problem reoccurring again and again and again. So many people go from, pain to pain to pain or injury to injury to injury. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? My body must just be broken. Versus like, oh, well, if we can address some of these issues, some of these structural issues within your life, we can really make a difference. So what came up to me was the patient who I think worked for like a chocolate company or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
was such a great example of what's happening within the lifestyle that's going to make anything that we do really difficult unless we can address something there.
Yeah. So this is an interesting. Well, so I'm going to back up. Before I tell that, really quick, I'm going to back up and say a lot of the different aspects of the way we structured Body Smart came from our own frustrations. So often clinicians will say things like, oh, they just aren't compliant, or they're, I send them home with this plan of care and they just don't do it. And that's one of our biggest frustrations is non-compliant patients. I would argue that most of their non-compliance is actually because we didn't help them connect with the deeper why of why they're there and help them get sold on the plan of care. That's really why they're non-compliant, in my opinion. And so with this patient, so she was a taste tester for a company I will not name, but they make syrups. So like different flavored syrups, chocolate, strawberry, I believe. I don't know, red, dark brown, light brown. I think like butterscotch, caramel, whatever. Her job was to taste test these different syrups multiple times a day for each batch. So we did the math on it of how many calories and how many grams of sugar she was eating per each. So she came in complaining of some aches and pains and things like that, but also looking to lose some weight because she was having a hard time battling weight issues. But when we calculated it out, it was like, depending on the day, between 3,000 and 4,500 calories a day just in syrup. That's wild to me. I don't know how you could lead a healthy lifestyle when that's your job. And apparently, like, she is amazing at it and can taste the difference in the batches and knows what needs to be adjusted. That blows my mind. That's so cool.
Like, what a skill.
Yeah, what a skill. At the same time, what a risk to her health. I mean, she's just from that alone is on the bullet train to type 1 or type 2 diabetes.
You always joke that like they should be giving her hazard pay.
They should be giving her hazard pay. Absolutely. And so, yeah, fascinating case study, but there was something much deeper in her life and lifestyle that made that a much bigger problem. And so we talked about strategies for burning calories throughout the day to try to curb the blood sugar spikes that she was getting for, each tablespoon that she was eating multiple times a day. And so that definitely was a challenge, though, to her overall health and wellness. And so creating a custom plan for her where we had to help her understand those aspects of her metabolism and things like that. So yeah, fascinating case. But so everybody's got their own different things that we had to address. And so as the evolution of Body Smart came along, so at first we were just doing this as an extension of the plan of care. We were doing fee for service, so like paying for each visit and trying to extend those visits out. But what we were finding, again, most of these changes came from our frustrations.
Yeah.
What we were finding is that settling up at the end of every visit became difficult. They felt like it was expensive because now we're in this cash pay world instead of the insurance-based world. And so we decided, actually, as a company, to switch completely over to cash pay model. So it was all cash, and switch the model from fee for service to packages, where we would bring somebody in for their initial consultation. We do a bunch of baseline testing, so the metabolic testing and other things, and then we'd say, okay, here's the package that I think would work best for you. So whether we started with the metabolic testing as part of the baseline, or they had more of a pain issue, we do baseline testing there, and then we'd say, okay, here's the big picture of where you're at, where you want to go, and we're going to sell you the gap. Is how I would kind of phrase it. Here's where you're at. Here's where you want to be. Here's the reasons why you want to be there. Was the big key, is diving in to the reasons why they wanted to be there, so that they bought into the plan, and then said, okay, here's the plan. We're going to need, this many visits in this time frame to get out of the initial pain issue or whatever. And then we're going to do this wellness lifestyle piece, and we're going to spread that out, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd sell that package. We'd divide it up over the length of the package. So if it was an 8-month package, we'd say, well, you can pay in 8 monthly installments. And that worked pretty well. That was great. It was easier to sell. It was more financially affordable. One of the things that I loved is we weren't having to settle up at the end of every visit.
Yeah.
And so people left feeling the value instead of left settling up and being like, ooh, that was expensive, right? And so I loved that. Honestly, I loved it. I remember the moment that I was on a vacation with my family. We were on Newport Beach in California, and it was really awesome because I felt like, man, we can't even afford this trip. When you're a small business owner, you pay for vacations 3 times over. You pay for the vacation itself, you pay for the lost revenue, and then the lost opportunity cost of bringing new patients in or doing marketing efforts and things. So you pay for the vacation thrice. And I remember walking out to the beach and getting a notification on my phone where I received payments from people that were on our payment plan. And I was like, I'm getting paid while I'm not working. This is amazing. And so that was super nice to be able to forecast my income, to be able to say, okay, for the next 4 months, I have payroll covered, I have rent covered, I have whatever, by doing these packages and plans. So definitely I would offer some discounts to have people pay in full.
Yeah.
Or they could do the monthly installments, so that I was getting some cash up front, which helped, cash flow. And then I had the monthly payments that really helped to balance out, like, forecasting how we were doing long term. And so that worked really well. I liked that, the packages, and doing it that way. But it kind of led us down another path of, I feel like I keep saying all the same things.
That's so true.
Over and over and over again, to where I was like, what if we packaged this as courses, and we have a knee pain course and a back pain course and all these types of things, and that led to us being more in the wellness realm of keeping people healthy.
Yeah.
And that really was the goal all along. Is I wanted to intervene before people had strokes or heart attacks or all these other things. And my entry point was any kind of pain issue they had. We tried to make it about their whole total wellness. And so this we started targeting and marketing more towards just wellness and getting people in just for the idea of let's keep you healthy and well and avoid the pain problems. Let's keep you on the road and functioning. And so that kind of shifted our business model again toward more building out these courses and selling just this broader plan for health and wellness and things like that. And it became eventually a $5,000 kind of paid up front most of the time. Sometimes people did payment plans, but a $5,000 6-month long program. And then you were part of our membership for a year. And at that point in time, I was no longer selling metabolic testing as a one-off service. It was just part of the plan of care. And it was part of this bigger package. It was a value add to here's where you're at, here's where you want to be in your health and wellness. And so we talked about we're training you for the 85-year-old you.
Mm-hmm.
We're no longer talking about the now you. I want to help you become the 85-year-old you want to become. And here's the steps, here's the plan, here's the package. And so we really shifted from that fee-for-service in-network model to an out-of-network cash-based fee-for-service model to then packages model to then more of a membership and long-term plan model. And so all of those different models, they all worked in their own ways. Each had their own sets of headaches. And so I think why we ended where we ended with Body Smart, with which I really like this package model where they just buy the transformation,
Mm-hmm.
is why I like that is reduce some of the headaches of the fee for service and all those other things. But we were really selling then the lifestyle change. And that's really what we wanted to target with Body Smart. That's why we named the company Body Smart. We want to help educate people on how their body works. And that's, metabolic testing in a nutshell is how your body functions, but also what you need to do in your life and lifestyle to make your body work for you and you not work against it. And so it kind of fulfilled a broader mission of what we wanted to do at Body Smart.
Absolutely. Well, and a big part of the reason that we went through this with you is just so you can see there's so many different ways to bring value.
And all of them worked.
And all of them worked.
They were just different.
And it's just, it's figuring out, what do I want? Like what is my business about? What's our goal? Who are we trying to help? And then finding a way to match with those people. And going back to adding value to people's lives and going back to selling to help. One of Cameron and I's ongoing frustrations is the amount of misinformation and frankly, like charlatanism, snake oil salesman in the health and wellness world.
Yeah.
This is a huge problem. But here's the deal. One of the reasons why that's such a problem is that those individuals have found ways to get people to buy into their philosophy, to their way of thinking, even though I would argue it's maybe neutral at best, but often counterproductive at worst.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're not bringing data-driven, science-backed strategies to your clients and finding a way to invite them into your world and to add value, they'll get captured by someone else. Mm. And unfortunately, all too often, that someone else is not bad, but because they're bought into modalities or ways of thinking that aren't actually grounded in physiological reality, in plausibility,
yeah,
then people end up spinning their wheels working on things that take away from making long-term improvements to making short-term improvements to their health and making long-term improvements to your health. And so, like, if we can find ways to add value, right? And I love what you said earlier, right? Like, so often the issue of non-compliance is on us, right? We haven't yet listened enough, and so we haven't yet understood. And because we haven't yet understood, we haven't been able to ask the right questions to figure out their deeper why. And so like there is a burden on us to do that work with clients. Like what we often hear is, the people doing some of those practices that aren't as effective, they're really good listeners, right? They spend lots of time with people and good storytellers, right?
Really good storytellers. Yeah.
And the truth is, like when we make buying decisions, especially when we make big decisions, it's typically an emotional response, and then we back that up with logic later, right?
Yeah.
And so, and so, if we can help people get to the emotions, it's not that we're trying to, deceive them or pull them along, but we're just trying to get them to open their eyes to what can actually change in their life, and improvements in their health and fitness that can actually be made. And so being able to get at them emotionally and help them figure out like, oh, what is that deeper why? Like, why do I want this? Why is this important to me? What's a strong enough why that through all the messiness of life, through all the ups and downs, I can stay committed to this goal because of what it means to me.
Yeah. And that's so critical if we can help them buy into that whole idea of connecting why I'm here today in this appointment to what I want to achieve, what I really would like to achieve. Yes, I want to get out of this knee pain, but why is that? Well, because it's keeping me from doing the things that I love to do. Okay, but how does that make you feel about you that you can't do them? How does that make you feel like you're becoming? Well, then you really dig deep into somebody's psyche. And we talked about that on that other episode with Greg Marshall. When you can dig that third layer deep of how they feel about themselves, that they're not whatever that gap is, that's when you really can connect with that deeper why and help them move forward. So when you're creating the vision of how you want to implement metabolic testing, the RMR, the VO2 testing into your business, you kind of have to step back and say, okay, who do I want to target? Mm-hmm. So we kind of have this implementation roadmap of here are the steps you have to kind of think through to see who you're going to help and how you're going to help them. And the first thing you have to consider is, who's my target audience? Who is that avatar of who I want to help? And Mark and I spent quite a bit of time defining our avatar of like this 38 to 55-year-old female who has actually been fairly active and exercised and been someone who has tried to participate in fitness and in their health, but is frustrated, either burnt out, just fatigued, or has tried everything and it's just not working, or it used to work, but through menopause and life and kids and all those things, it's just not working anymore. And so that was kind of our avatar of finding, especially moms, because moms drive other patients as well. Moms are good recommenders. They recommend their friends, they recommend their spouses, their kids. And so we like to target moms who are kind of in that situation of, I want to be healthy, I want to be active, I try really hard, but I'm frustrated. And so that's who we targeted. Our messaging, our branding tried to target that type of person. So first, you've got to identify who are you going to target for this suite of services that we're going to offer with the metabolic testing. And then you have to say, I need my entire staff to be on board with this. I want everybody to be able to understand what it is and how to talk about it so that we can all be hyping it up. Because again, we want to make the testing part of the plan of care. And so if we can get everybody on the staff on board with like, this is, what it does, and why everyone needs this test, then at every interaction, we can be hyping that up. Oh, so that was one of my favorite things, especially back when I was the more fee-for-service in-network physical therapy, and this was going to be the plan of care moving forward. I would talk about it, visit one with people. We're going to get you out of this knee pain, and then I'm excited to do this metabolic test with you, where we can help you start working on the lifestyle piece of all of this. And I would bring it up every visit. Like, oh, when we get to that point, when we can do your metabolic test, when your knees feel good enough or your back or whatever it is feels good enough that we can do that metabolic test, I'm really excited to see how we're going to structure that. I bring that up every single visit so that when we got there, they were excited about it too. They were excited to see where they were at. and where their fitness was and how we were going to help them become this new thing. And so when people would come in for visits, I didn't, I, and I tried to have the whole staff do this as well, not ask about, oh, how are your knees doing? Instead, it was, we talk about the gap of where you want to be. How much closer do you feel you are to hitting the slopes again? How much closer do you feel like you are to your golf trip or your whatever that thing is that we were trying to help them achieve? How much closer are you to that marathon? And when we can bring that up and have the whole staff be involved in that, it really is helpful at getting everybody on board. And then people buy into that plan of care. They're excited to see you. They know that everyone in the office is invested in their health and wellness and their outcome, because that's what we're selling, is that outcome. And it really helped when the whole staff was more involved in this unified voice behind wanting to do the testing.
Yeah. Well, and part of what helped is that we would have everyone go through the testing themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like Cameron and I regularly testing, staff were regularly testing, so that it's like, this isn't just something that we talk about. This is something that we're all experiencing. And so we know what this means. Like, oh man, like I don't have to feel like totally burnt out every time that I exercise. Like I can actually feel fairly recovered, feel like I go out and do this again, right? I can know what my limitations are. And so it's just a natural outgrowth, right? Like, no, this actually is amazing technology. Like this actually makes a difference. And so I'm excited about it. We do that all the time with products and other things that we love, right? We're sneezers. We're like, oh my gosh, you got to try this. Like this was so great. Or, oh man, I love this restaurant. Or, oh man, like you got to try this new thing because it makes a difference, right? And so if you have people like experiencing that, then they can sneeze that to other staff. They can sneeze that to clients. I know, gross metaphor,
but it spreads.
but it spreads, and then like that translates to the client experience. And when clients have a good experience, then they want to go sneeze that to everyone else. Like, you got to do this. Like this made such a difference. And so what we want to do is really create this staff culture and just this business culture, where this is not just something that we do. This is something that we believe in because we've seen the value, and because we've seen the value, it's a natural outgrowth to share that value with other people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If we're bought in, it helps our patients to buy in, right? And so we would regularly run tests on staff on so we worked a lot with students, and every student that came in, we test them. And it was fun to have people understand the experience, so that they could help people walk through it, and so that they could answer questions on phone calls and things like that, not be totally like stunned by a question. It really helped. And then it just created the right culture as well. Okay, the next step, after you've kind of defined who you want to target and you've got your staff kind of on board, you want to see how this is going to integrate with your pricing and product strategy, how you're going to fit this in. Is this going to be a continuation of the plan of care? Is this going to be just a one-off? We're just doing the testing and retesting? Is that kind of the package we're going to offer? Or are we going to have this be part of a value add to this greater suite of services that we're going to do? All of those different models work in different ways and can be successful. You just have to decide what works best with our business, and then decide kind of that next step is what the retest schedule is, how often you want people to come in that works with that business flow. And then the last thing is finding great referral loops, finding those people within your community, whether that's other physicians, whether that's community referral partners like gyms, health clubs, other allied health professionals, whether that's often I loved running shops and bike shops. They an active group of people that wanted to know their numbers and that were always trying to improve. They're always looking to get better for their next race and everything. So I worked a lot with those running clubs and bike shops and things like that, because they had a captive audience already of people that were interested in this kind of information, and that were a lot of those people that were our avatar, right?
Yeah.
That were these healthy, active people, but that had frustrations. That it could be just being frustrated about I did well in my race, but it wasn't as good as I wanted to do, or maybe I totally bonked my race. And so that for us, that was a good referral partner in the realm that we were in. And so it's just finding who are those people that we can test as a value add to them. So that's one of the things that I love to do was go test. If I was going to try to create a partnership with a running store, I would go test their owner or their staff. I would go to physicians' offices that I wanted to work with, some of my friends that were physicians or other things, and I would test them. I'd offer them or their staff free tests so that they were bought in. When we talk about getting our staff to buy in and be on board, same idea with those who are referring to you. The best way to get them on board is to run tests on them, show them what it's all about. And so I gave away a lot of free tests. And I found the more that I gave away, the more free tests I gave away, the more I got, the more that brought me in business. And so find those referral partners, people that it's like, man, they're seeing the type of patients that are my avatar. I'm going to go work with them, build a relationship with them, give away free tests and give away of my knowledge to them so that they're willing to give back referrals to me.
Yeah. Well, another example I can think of is like influencers.
Oh yeah.
So we know a business that they connected with an influencer, and this particular individual was just really good with social media, right?
Yeah.
And creating content that their avatar was consuming and buying into. And so like that relationship actually was so helpful. This influencer had relationships with other, businesses that ended up being, helpful connections. And so you don't always necessarily know like where an opportunity is going to lead. But I love what you said of like we're not just adding value to the customers at the door. Like anyone that we want to connect with, we're finding ways to add value. We're finding ways to give, and it's like so often just like serendipitous opportunities pop up, but they pop up because we've increased the surface area, if you will, of our because we're making those connections because we're trying to add value. Then more opportunities pop up, and when more opportunities pop up, like there's greater chance for any individual opportunity to really make a big difference in how we're doing things.
Right. Lucky breaks happen because you put yourself out there enough that you eventually run into your lucky break.
Yeah.
Right. It's there a lot of perspiration to get your lucky break. So
Absolutely.
So no matter what you're doing, how you're doing it, and folding this in, everybody wants to know what's going to be my ROI if I purchase a cardio coach or a review or whatever. How is that going to generate money for my business? No matter what the business model is. So that's a great question. I always like to look at it this way. For what I charge in the clinic, when we would factor it in as part of a package, we would factor it at $300. That's kind of the amount we would need to cover our time and costs and whatever for a metabolic test with the combo of the resting and exercise test. So we would price that as when it was part of a package at 300. We would charge more for just one-off tests and stuff because I wanted to discourage the one-off testing. But so if we're $300 a test, I like that math because it just makes it easy. We have 52 weeks in a year. So if you take 2 weeks off of vacation, you got 50 weeks in a year. And if you're charging $300 a test, you've got your ROI on the device with one test a week. You can pay for the Cardio Coach Pro, our top of the line model. So that's paid for in 1 year with just one test per week. I would argue most places should be able to at least do one test per week. But then you think, well, yeah, but you've got overhead and whoever's running the test, I got to pay that person and all those things. Totally. So at 2 tests per week, then you're paying for the person and for the device. So if you can do 2 tests per week in that first year, like you're breaking even. If you can do 3 tests per week, now you're profitable within that first year. And 3 tests per week is very doable. In my heyday, especially springtime, as people were getting ready for races and things like that, I would do 8 to 10 tests a week because we in our business limited it to just mornings, where we would do tests just in the mornings. And so I would do 2 or 3 a day some mornings. And so, if I'm doing that many a week, then I'm profitable, right? Yep. And so that's kind of the thing. In your first year, when you first buy the device, if you can get to 3 tests per week, you're making money. In that second year, then, once the device is paid for, because the operation cost of it is so low. That's one of the things I love about the cardio coaching, is that there's no cost per test and things like that, where you're being nickeled and dimed and all those things. And so because of that, at 2 tests per week, you're profitable once you've paid that initial ROI down. And so if you're talking just ROI and you're doing more of a per test basis, like that's where you're at, and you're already profitable. Now, depending on your business model, again, if you're doing it as just a value add, you may not be as concerned with ROI, but you still have to kind of wonder, is this really helping my business, making me money? And I would say the value in the information alone is helping you really help your people, and is worth every penny. But from a strictly ROI standpoint, that's the way I like to think about it. Is your first test in that first year, you're covering the cost. Your second test per week, you're covering the employee, and your third test is profit. And so if you can get there to where you're doing a test at least one a day, you're killing it. You're doing great.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back to something you said really quick of, like the information that we can give people with this type of test. Because one of the things people ask is like, well, why don't I just go to the place down the street that's, charging whatever for this, or like, oh, I'll just go to my university, or I'll go to the school or whatever, and it's like $60 a pop. And the difference is in the depth of information that I'm going to get, and then how is that integrated into an overall plan that's going to make a long-term difference.
Right.
And so we've talked about before, like VO2 max, great to know your number. Like VO2 max is highly associated with risk of mortality. The higher your cardiorespiratory fitness, the longer you're likely to live.
Yeah.
But it's not just VO2 max, right? There's so much more that we can find out about how the body's working. Again, I feel like we mention this every time. Go back and check out our episodes on identifying and understanding limitations with this type of testing. We can look at, how is the cardiovascular system working? How's the cardiorespiratory system working? How's the musculoskeletal system working? And then figure out, like, hey, what are primary limitations? What are secondary limitations, tertiary limitations? And, given this information, where do we go from here? And this just equips us with really good information to make to help people make better decisions for their health.
Yeah.
And so there really is so much value that we can bring with this. And so I think, like, when we ourselves understand the value of what all this data actually adds, we understand how to use that, which is part of the purpose of this podcast, is giving you the information of what does this information mean and how do we use it. Then we can really add a ton of value to people's lives. We can help them through that process of behavior change. We can, help them improve their health, fitness, performance, all those things. And so, it's just, how do I tell the story to people of how is this going to add value? How is this going to change your life? And again, not in a deceptive way, in a way like, no, like, I've seen what this can do. I know what this can do. This really has power to help people make that next best decision for their health. And then we can, frame it in that way and help people to buy into something that's actually going to benefit their health, and not spin them through another failure cycle where they think it's all their fault.
Yeah, exactly. And we get so many people that feel that way, that they've failed so many things, that they've struggled so much. And being able to give people real actionable information that's based on their body, that they can take home and do great things with. This adds so much value to your business. It really does, adding the testing in. And so hopefully today was helpful at examining maybe a little case study of Body Smart and what we do, but how we got there, but looking at different ways that you could incorporate this into your business. And this is just scratching the surface. Those are just a few ways that we incorporated it into Body Smart, into, kind of a hybrid physical therapy clinic / more wellness and longevity, was really our goal. But there are so many other ways. I know there's a lot of companies popping up that are just testing centers, that we want to give people all of their data, all of their metrics. And so they test in lots of different ways, and they're very profitable. They're doing really well, and myriad other ways that you can use this testing to benefit people, athlete testing and all kinds of other things. And so get out there and create your business, decide on your avatar, and see who you want to target and how you want to target them, and you really can be successful adding this into your business.
Absolutely. Well, as always, thanks for joining us. And remember, if you want more content like this, remember to like, follow, and subscribe. We'll catch you next time. Ready to take your metabolic testing to the next level? Visit KORR.com to learn more about purchasing our metabolic test equipment.